These are stories where love meets betrayal. Stories that make you see life a little differently.
It didn't happen suddenly. It was not one explosion. It was a slow, creeping fire, eating through the walls of our marriage while I kept the windows closed, refusing to smell the smoke. For months, I blamed myself. I thought I had failed him somehow. I thought perhaps I wasn't enough, not interesting enough, not beautiful enough, not warm enough, not anything enough. It took me almost a year to understand the truth. He betrayed me because he wanted to, because he could, because my loyalty made me an easy target. Rain used to calm me. Now it reminds me of the night everything changed.
It was late autumn, the kind of night when the air is cold, the streets shine with wet reflections, and the city feels like it's holding its breath. I was sitting by the window, listening to the quiet rhythm of raindrops, waiting for Noah to come home. He was late again. He was always late. He had an explanation for every absence. Work, traffic, meetings, calls, unexpected deadlines. At first, I believed him. Later, I convinced myself that believing him was easier than facing the truth. That night, though, something felt different. Something heavy settled in my chest, like a warning. I picked up his jacket from the chair. It felt strangely unfamiliar, colder. At that moment, a faint scent drifted toward me. Not mine, not ours. Someone else's perfume. Soft. Sweet, foreign. My heart stuttered, then stopped. The silence in the room grew louder. My hands trembled as I pulled the jacket closer and breathed in again. It was unmistakable. Someone had been close to him, close enough to leave their scent on his clothes, close enough to touch what belonged to me. But even then, I denied it. I told myself it could have been anyone, a stranger at the office, a colleague, a passing moment. But perfume doesn't cling without contact. It lingers after closeness, after warmth, after skin touches skin. I put the jacket down. I sat in the dark. I listened to the rain. When Noah finally entered the apartment, he looked surprised to see me awake. His smile was tight, forced, uneasy. Couldn't sleep? No, I answered quietly. I didn't accuse him that night. I didn't ask questions. I just watched him. Every gesture, every expression, every lie he didn't yet say aloud. He showered before coming to bed, something he rarely did after late nights. He turned away from me while undressing. He avoided my eyes. But betrayal has a scent. It has a rhythm, and once you feel it, you can't unfeel it. The next morning, while he slept, I checked his phone. I used to think only insecure women did that. Now I know sometimes insecurity is simply intuition screaming to be heard. His messages were clean, too clean, suspiciously clean. Dozens of conversations deleted, entire threads missing. Only one number remained with no name, just a single initial, L. The last message was 2 days old. Same time, same place,
No emojis, no affection, too neutral. The kind of tone people use when they're careful.
I felt the ground shift beneath me. My hands grew cold, my lips trembled. But anger didn't come. Not yet. Just a deep, sharp sadness, like a blade pressed against bone. I put his phone back where it was. I lay next to him. I stared at the ceiling. Same time, same place. The words repeated in my mind like drops hitting the window. I didn't confront him. Not that day, not the next, not even when he came home late again, smelling faintly of rain and something floral. Instead, I started watching, listening, observing. Betrayal has a pattern, and I learned to recognize every movement in it. It took 1 week before I followed him. He thought he was smart. He thought deleting messages erased reality. He didn't know that when a woman suspects betrayal, she becomes something else entirely. Focused, patient, dangerously calm. I waited until he left the office for his late meeting. Then I took my umbrella, locked the door behind me, and stepped into the rain. The city was quiet that evening. Shops were closing. Streetlights glowed soft and golden through the mist. Cars hummed in the distance. And the rain, steady, relentless, felt like a witness to everything that was about to unfold. I followed at a distance, not close enough to be seen, not far enough to lose him. He walked quickly, shoulders hunched, checking his phone every few steps. I felt my pulse slow, my breathing steady. Pain has a strange way of sharpening the senses. He turned a corner, then another. Finally, he stopped in front of a small cafe with fogged windows and dim lights. And she was already there, waiting, smiling. She stood up when she saw him. Her hair was dark, long, falling over her shoulders like silk. She touched his arm. He touched hers. Their familiarity burned through me like fire. It was her, Elle. He kissed her. Not on the lips. He wasn't that careless. But on the cheek. Slow, warm, tender. The kind of kiss you give someone you're comfortable with. Someone you've touched before. Someone you shouldn't be touching. I felt something inside me break. Not loudly, not violently. Just a small, quiet fracture. And in that fracture, something new began to form. Not sadness, not shock, not disbelief. Revenge. I used to believe that the worst days of my life had already passed. I thought the storm that destroyed my marriage was the last one I would ever have to walk through. But life rarely gives warnings. And betrayal, it always arrives quietly, like the first drop of rain before the downpour. My name is Elise. I am 34 years old, and a year ago, I discovered that the man I loved more than anything had been lying to me with the ease of a practiced actor. I didn't go inside the cafe. I didn't need to. Everything I saw through that rain-blurred window was enough to rewrite my entire life. Noah leaned closer to her. She laughed quietly. They looked like two people who shared a secret world. A world I didn't belong to anymore. I stood across the street, half hidden under my umbrella, watching the man I loved smile in ways he hadn't smiled at me in months. He used to look at me like that, once, long ago. The rain was cold, sliding down my hair, my neck, my hands, but I barely felt it. Pain numbs you before it destroys you.
I think that's how it protects you, for a little while. After 10 minutes, they left the cafe together. She wrapped her arm around his. He didn't pull away. They walked into the narrow alley behind the building, a place with no cameras, no witnesses, except me. I followed silently. Each step felt surreal, like I was moving inside someone else's nightmare. They stopped under the shadow of a fire escape, dark, private, hidden. He touched her cheek, she closed her eyes, and then he kissed her. Full, slow, deep. A kiss that didn't belong to a mistake or a moment of weakness. People don't kiss like that unless they've done it before, unless they intend to do it again. I didn't cry, not then. The tears would come later, much later, when no one could see them. At that moment, I felt a strange calmness settle over me, a clarity I had never felt before. It was as if my heart stepped aside and let something colder take its place. I turned away. I walked home alone. The rain fell harder, drumming against the pavement, matching the rhythm of my thoughts. He came home 2 hours later. Damp hair, wet shoes, the faintest trace of perfume that was not mine. I was sitting at the kitchen table, lights off, only the window glowing with streetlight reflections. When he entered, he froze. "Elise?" he said softly. "Hi." My voice sounded calm. Too calm. "Why are you sitting in the dark?" I shrugged. "Just thinking." He hesitated. He always hesitated when he had something to hide. "We had a late meeting," he began. "It ran longer than expected." "Did it?" I didn't look at him. I didn't need to. He stepped closer, put his keys on the counter. Wet droplets fell from his coat onto the floor. "Elise, is everything okay?" And for a moment, I almost told him the truth. I almost said, "I saw you. I watched you kiss her. I know everything." But instead, I lifted my eyes and simply said, "Yeah, everything's fine." Because the moment you confront someone, the story changes. They start explaining, twisting, erasing, rewriting. I didn't want explanations. Not yet. I wanted the truth to stay whole, cold, untouched, undeniable. And I wanted time. Time to think. Time to plan. Time to understand what kind of damage he had done to my soul. For the next week, I pretended nothing had changed. I made breakfast. I asked about his day. I kissed his cheek when he left for work. He smiled more, relaxed. He probably thought he had fooled me again. But I watched him closely. The way he hid his phone. The way he stepped outside for calls. The way he returned home later each night. I collected every detail like pieces of a puzzle, one that spelled out the truth. He wasn't going to stop. He didn't want to stop. Once, late at night, I asked him quietly, "Are you happy with me, Noah?" He froze, a moment too long, just long enough for me to see the panic flicker in his eyes. "Of course I am," he said finally. "You know that." But the way he said it, too quick, too soft, too rehearsed, told me everything. I turned away so he wouldn't see the shadow of a smile forming on my lips. Not a happy smile, a knowing one.
The kind you make when the pieces finally fall into place. On Thursday evening, after he left for his meeting, I opened the drawer of his desk. He always kept it locked. He forgot that I knew the spare key's hiding place. Inside the drawer was a small leather notebook. Black. Simple. Unmarked. Curious, I opened it. And my breath caught. Dates. Times. Locations. Short notes. Almost like a schedule. And her initial, L, appearing over and over again. My fingers shook slightly as I turned the pages. 2 months. 2 months of meetings, lunches, work calls, hotel rooms. They had a pattern, a rhythm, a routine, a relationship. I felt something tighten in my chest. Not hurt, but anger. A quiet, controlled anger that pulsed through my veins like electricity. I put the notebook back exactly where it was, closed the drawer, locked it. Then I sat on the edge of the bed and whispered to the empty room. Okay, if this is the game you want to play, I'll learn the rules. From that moment, I stopped being the version of Elise he thought he knew. The quiet one, the forgiving one, the endlessly patient one. That Elise was gone, washed away by the rain, dissolved by heartbreak, buried under lies. In her place stood someone sharper, someone stronger, someone capable of surviving the truth, and someone capable of ending the comfortable little world Noah had built behind my back. The next day, I did something I never imagined I would do. I started gathering evidence, photos, dates, messages he forgot to delete from his cloud backup, screenshots, receipts, locations, anything that painted the full picture. It wasn't just hurt anymore. It was purpose. A quiet, methodical purpose. I didn't know exactly what I would do yet, but I knew this. He would not walk away from this untouched. He would not ruin my life and walk into hers with clean hands. No. He was going to feel the consequences, all of them. And the rain, steady, constant, always present, felt like a drumbeat guiding every step I took. The first time I saw them together was painful. The second time was confirming. The third time, I stopped feeling anything at all. When the heart breaks, it doesn't shatter all at once. It cracks slowly, quietly, until the final piece falls away, and all that remains is clarity. The following week, Noah behaved exactly as I expected. He grew distant, distracted, constantly checking his phone. He thought he was being subtle. He never was. I monitored everything without him realizing. I timed his departures, tracked his excuses, mapped every lie he told. And on Wednesday night, I followed him again. Not because I needed more proof, but because I wanted to see how far he was willing to go. It was raining harder than usual, big, heavy drops that sounded like warnings hitting the pavement. Noah walked quickly under his umbrella, glancing around as if the shadows themselves were watching him. He turned into a quiet street lined with small boutiques and dim cafes. Then he slipped inside a building I recognized only vaguely, an old boutique hotel. I waited across the street, hidden under the awning of a closed bakery. The rain blurred the neon lights into streaks of blue and yellow. 5 minutes passed, 10,
15. Then she arrived. L. She wore a long beige coat and moved with quiet confidence, the kind of confidence people have when they believe the world owes them something. She didn't look around. She just walked straight inside, and I knew right then that this wasn't just an affair. This was an arrangement, a system, a second life. I didn't cry. I didn't tremble. I just breathed deeply and whispered to myself, "Good. Now I know everything." I stayed there until the lights in one of the top floor rooms flickered on. The curtains closed a moment later. A hotel room, of course. For a long time, I stood in the rain, listening to the steady rhythm of drops on the awning. The sound felt almost comforting now. Steady, predictable, unlike him. After an hour, I left. I didn't need to see anything else. When I got home, the apartment felt different. Colder, emptier, like it was holding its breath. I walked into the bedroom. His side of the bed looked untouched. Mine looked worn, tired, lonely. I sat down and let out a long, slow exhale. Not a sigh, a release. I realized something important in that moment, something freeing. I didn't want him anymore. Not the man he had become, not the liar he chose to be, not the partner who used my trust as a cover for his betrayal. I wanted justice, not dramatic, not violent, not loud. Precise, cold, accurate. Revenge that doesn't destroy you, only them. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of purpose sharper than any pain I had felt before. A kind of focus that comes only when you have nothing left to lose. I showered. I dressed. I tied my hair back, and then I opened my laptop. For 2 hours, I researched every legal option I had. Property rights, financial accounts, shared investments, insurance, everything with his name on it, everything with mine. I learned something interesting. If a spouse can prove infidelity with evidence, the financial settlement changes dramatically. And I had evidence, more than enough. I organized each file into separate folders. Photos, screenshots, video, dates, logs, all clearly labeled, all undeniable. Then I created a backup, several backups, because men like Noah, when cornered, try to erase their sins, but I wasn't going to give him the chance. When Noah came home that evening, he kissed my cheek. It felt like a stranger touching me. "How was your day?" he asked. "Quiet," I said. "And yours?" "Busy, long meeting. You know how it is." I almost laughed, but I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I smiled gently and set dinner on the table. We ate like a normal couple. We talked about work, about the weather, about nothing real. But the whole time I watched him, every blink, every pause, every small lie disguised as casual conversation. And he had no idea that I knew every detail of his second life. He had no idea the ground under his feet was slowly cracking. Later, as he showered, his phone buzzed on the counter. I glanced at the screen. A message from L. No name, just the letter. It said, "Tomorrow, same time." I didn't touch the phone. I didn't need to. I already had screenshots of every previous conversation. When he walked out of the bathroom, he smiled at me, wet hair falling over his forehead. He looked innocent. He wasn't. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Yes," I said softly. "Everything is perfect." And in a way, it was, because his betrayal had given me something powerful, a clear path. After he fell asleep, I lay beside him, staring at the ceiling. I imagined what the next few days would bring, what truth would do when it finally surfaced, what it would feel like when he realized he had ruined his own life, not mine. The rain outside tapped gently against the window, the rhythm steady, comforting. It felt like encouragement. The next day, while Noah was at work, I made an appointment with a lawyer. She asked for proof. I provided everything, more than she expected, more than most clients ever had. After reviewing the evidence, she leaned back and looked at me carefully. "Elise," she said softly, "you have a very strong case." I nodded. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to relief. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Because while legal consequences mattered, they weren't enough. Noah didn't just betray me. He humiliated me. He lied to my face. He wasted years of my life. And I wasn't going to walk away quietly. Not when he walked into that hotel room with confidence. Not when he kissed her with ease. Not when he believed he could have everything without losing anything. He was wrong. That night, he came home early. Unusual for him. Suspicious. He sat beside me on the couch and said, "I feel like we've been distant lately." My heart almost stopped from the irony. "Do you?" I asked softly. "Yeah. I want us to reconnect. Maybe take a weekend away." A weekend away. With the wife he betrayed last night. I kept my face neutral, calm, warm. "That sounds nice," I said. And inside, I felt the shift. The moment when the prey becomes the hunter. Because Noah didn't know it yet, but we were heading toward the last calm day of his life. The morning after Noah suggested a weekend away, I woke up with a strange sense of calm. Not peace, not forgiveness, just certainty. I watched him as he dressed for work. The way he carefully styled his hair, the way he checked his phone every 30 seconds, the way he avoided my eyes, even when pretending he wasn't. He kissed my forehead when he left. A soft, gentle kiss. A familiar lie. As soon as the door closed, I exhaled, long, slow, and controlled. Then I opened my laptop. I wasn't just planning to leave him. I was planning to break the life he built on my trust. Betrayal is a crime of intention. Revenge is a crime of precision. I printed the hotel photos, filed the screenshots, organized the dates from his notebook. Everything clean, clear, undeniable. At noon, I went to the lawyer again. We finalized the documents, prepared the timeline, outlined the financial consequences he would face. She told me I didn't have to confront him personally. I could let the papers speak. But no, some truths deserve to be delivered face to face. When I walked home, the sky darkened, clouds thickened, the air smelled like rain. It felt fitting. Rain had been with me through every moment of this story, a witness, a companion, a mirror of everything I felt. By the time I reached the apartment, the first drops had started to fall. Soft, cold, steady. Inside, I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the divorce papers. My name, his name, the weight of the past 10 years. I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. Around 6 p.m., Noah texted, "Running late. We'll talk when I'm home." Talk. Such a deceptively innocent word. I replied, "Okay." But I didn't wait for him on the couch or in the bedroom. I waited by the window, the same place where I had first smelled her perfume on his jacket. The rain grew heavier. Thunder hummed in the distance. The city lights blurred behind sheets of water cascading down the glass. At 8:17, Noah finally walked through the door. He looked tired, stressed, uneasy. "Elise," he said softly, "we need to talk." I nodded and motioned for him to sit. He hesitated, then he did. He took a deep breath as if rehearsing his lines. Then he said the words I had been expecting, yet still found unbelievable. "I haven't been myself lately, I know that, and I'm sorry if I made you feel distant. I want us to fix things." Fix things. He wanted to fix the marriage he had been actively destroying for months. I tilted my head gently. "Why now?" He blinked, caught off guard. "What do you mean? Why suddenly make time for me?" My voice was soft, even, controlled. "I've just been overwhelmed," he said. "Work, stress, everything. I want to do better." A lie polishing a lie. I wondered if he even knew where the truth ended anymore. "And the weekend trip?" I asked. "What made you think of that?" He hesitated. Just a fraction of a second. But enough. "I miss you," he said finally. "I want to reconnect." His words fell flat, empty, hollow. The truth was simple. He didn't want to reconnect. He wanted to stabilize me, control me, keep me from noticing the cracks in the story he'd been constructing. But it was too late. I had already stepped outside his narrative. "Noah," I said quietly, "look at me." He did, slowly, nervously. "How long have you been seeing her?" The color drained from his face so quickly it almost startled me. "Elise," he began. I raised a hand. Just a small gesture, but enough to silence him. "I followed you," I said. "I saw you together, both times." His mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. And I found the notebook. I continued. "Your meeting schedules, your hotel rooms, your notes." The silence grew so heavy it felt like another presence in the room. "Noah," I said softly. "How long?" He swallowed, hard, then whispered, 2 months. 2 months. 2 months of lies. 2 months of duplicate lives. I nodded, slowly, calmly, almost kindly. "Thank you for Elise telling the truth now," I said. He leaned forward. "Elise, it was a mistake. I didn't mean for it to happen. We can fix this." We can go to therapy. I'll end it, I promise. I let out a quiet breath that might have been a laugh, or disbelief, or pity. No, I said. We're not fixing anything. His eyes widened. Elise. I slid the folder across the table. Open it. He hesitated, then he reached for it with shaking hands. Inside were the photos, the screenshots, the timestamps, everything. He flipped through each page, slowly at first, then faster, almost frantically. When he reached the divorce papers, his hands froze. His voice cracked. Elise, what is this? It's the truth, I said softly. The truth you created. Rain thundered against the windows, echoing through the room. Elise, please, he whispered. We can fix this. I'll do anything. Just don't leave me. I looked at him, really looked at him. Not the man I once loved, not the man I built a life with, but the man who chose someone else and expected no consequences. Noah, I said quietly, this is not me leaving you. This is you leaving me. You just didn't expect me to close the door. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. This is done, I said, and tomorrow you're moving out. He stared at me as if seeing me for the first time, as if realizing that the woman who once forgave everything was gone. Elise, he whispered, I made a mistake. No, I answered. You made a choice. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The rain filled the silence, steady, relentless, honest. Finally, he whispered, I never thought you'd leave. And I replied, that's exactly why I am. He lowered his head, shoulders trembling, hands shaking, but my voice remained steady, unbroken, unmoved. Noah, this ends now. You can pack in the morning. He looked at me with desperation and fear, but those emotions came too late. He had months to choose me. He didn't. I stood up, walked past him, stopped by the doorway, and said the words that marked the true beginning of my freedom. I hope she was worth it. Then I left him sitting there, surrounded by evidence of his own destruction, alone, and finally, undeniably exposed. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a minute. The rain had softened by dawn, turning from furious to tired, like it had exhausted itself fighting for my attention. But I was wide awake, replaying everything Daniel had said, replaying everything I had said to him. Replaying the look in his eyes when he realized I wasn't the same woman he used to manipulate. I wasn't his anymore, and I never would be again. I spent the early mornings staring at the kitchen window, watching raindrops race down the glass like tiny, frantic messengers. I felt strangely calm, like the storm inside me had finally aligned with the storm outside. Because something shifted last night. I confronted him. I made him look at what he'd done. And for the first time, he cracked. The guilt he tried to bury finally bled through. But guilt wasn't enough. Guilt never repairs what betrayal destroys. I needed more. I needed closure. Or maybe I needed revenge. I wasn't sure yet, but I knew I couldn't stop now. I poured a cup of coffee even though I wasn't thirsty. Habit, I guess. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Daniel had slept in the guest room, or pretended to. I didn't care enough to check. When I finally heard footsteps behind me, I didn't turn. He hesitated in the doorway like a child approaching a parent after breaking something valuable. "Can we talk?" he asked softly. I didn't answer. He walked closer.
"I didn't sleep," he said. "I kept thinking about everything you said, everything I did." I still didn't turn, but my grip on the mug tightened. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," he continued, "but I want to try. I want to fix this. Fix us." I laughed, quietly, without humor. And finally I turned to face him. "Us?" I repeated. "There hasn't been an us for a long time." His face fell. He opened his mouth to respond, but I raised my hand to stop him. "I spent months trying to understand what went wrong," I said. "Months thinking I wasn't enough." I stepped closer.
"You didn't break us overnight, Daniel. You broke us with every lie, every secret, every time you looked at another woman and then came home pretending nothing was wrong." His eyes watered. "But tears weren't going to move me. Not anymore. I know," he whispered. "And I know I don't deserve another chance. But I'm begging you to let me fix this." I shook my head slowly. "You want to fix something that no longer exists." He swallowed hard. "I still love you," he said. Those words used to melt me. Now they felt like a trap. "You loved having me," I said. "You loved the comfort, the security, the way I always forgave you." I stepped back. "But you didn't love me enough to stay loyal." He flinched. Silence filled the room like smoke. Finally, I spoke again. "I'm done living in your shadow. I'm done waiting for you to choose me." My voice was steady. Too steady. "You already chose someone else." He took a shaky breath. "I ended it with her," he said. "I swear I did. Before you found out." I felt my stomach twist. Not because I believed him, but because he still thought it mattered. "It doesn't change anything," I said quietly. "She didn't break us. You did." He looked like he wanted to argue, then stopped. Because he finally understood I wasn't debating anymore. This wasn't a discussion. It was a goodbye. But not yet. There was still something I needed to do. Something I needed to see. "I'm going out today," I said. He stiffened. "Where?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I grabbed my coat and walked past him without looking back. He didn't try to stop me. Maybe he knew better. Maybe he was afraid of the answer. Or maybe he finally understood that this wasn't about him anymore. It was about me. The rain had turned to a thin mist by the time I stepped outside. Cold air wrapped around me, but it felt refreshing, like a reset. I got into the car and sat there for a moment, fingers resting on the steering wheel. I knew exactly where I was going. I'd been avoiding it for weeks, ever since everything fell apart. But today felt different. Today, I needed answers. Not from Daniel, but from her. The woman he chose. The woman he risked everything for. The woman he swore he ended things with, though we both knew endings weren't that simple. I didn't want a scene. I didn't want a fight. I didn't want to humiliate her or scream or accuse. I just wanted to see her, look her in the eyes.
understand what made her worth the lies. Maybe it was cruel. Maybe it was desperate. Maybe it was closure. But I had to do it. For myself. I started the engine and drove. The city was gray and washed out, blurred by leftover rain. Traffic lights reflected in puddles like broken pieces of stained glass. Every street felt familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. I followed the route I had memorized weeks ago, the address I'd found when everything first came crashing down, the address I never had the courage to visit. Until now, when I finally stopped in front of her building, my heart was pounding so loud I could feel it in my throat. I sat there for a full minute, maybe 2. Then I opened the car door and stepped into the mist. The entrance to her apartment complex was quiet, too quiet. Every step felt heavier than the one before, but I kept going. I climbed the stairs slowly. My hand trembled slightly as I reached for the door I had memorized. Her door. The woman who had shared my husband. The woman who changed everything. I raised my hand and knocked. One soft knock, then another. My pulse thundered in my ears. Seconds stretched endlessly. And then the door opened. She stood there. And the moment our eyes met, I understood something I never expected. Something that made the room tilt. Something that changed everything. She looked terrified and guilty, but not of what I thought. "Please," she whispered, "don't be angry. I didn't know." I froze. "What do you mean?" I whispered. She swallowed. "He told me he wasn't married." The air left my lungs. My vision blurred. And in that moment, everything I thought I understood shattered, and the truth began to form. Not just about him, but about what he'd been hiding all along. The real betrayal hadn't even been revealed yet. And I suddenly realized this story wasn't over. Not even close. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Her words cut deeper than anything Daniel had ever confessed. He told me he wasn't married. She stood there, trembling, her hands still clutching the door as if she needed support just to stay upright. I stared at her, trying to process the impossible truth unraveling in front of me. You didn't know?" I finally managed to ask. She shook her head quickly. "No, I swear I didn't. I thought he was divorced. He told me you left him years ago." A bitter laugh escaped me. It wasn't even funny. It was horrifying. He lied to her too. Not just to me. Not just to us. He built an entire world where he was the victim and I was the ghost. "Can I?" she asked gently, opening the door wider. "Can we talk inside? I don't want the neighbors hearing." I hesitated, but something in her expression, fear, guilt, regret, made me step in. Her apartment was small, tidy, and soft in a way that reminded me of who I used to be before betrayal turned me into someone sharper. She motioned for me to sit. I didn't. She stayed standing too. "He said his wife cheated on him," she whispered. "That's why the marriage ended." I felt my chest tighten. The audacity, the cruelty. "He lied," I said simply. Her eyes glistened. "I know that now." Silence settled between us. Not tense, not hostile, just heavy. "Can I ask you something?" she said quietly. I nodded. "Did he ever promise you things he didn't deliver?" I exhaled slowly. "Always.
She nodded as if she expected that answer. "He told me he wanted to move in together," she whispered. "That he was saving money for us. That he was working late because he wanted a stable future." My stomach twisted.
I knew that sentence too well. Working late. Always working late. Her voice cracked. I didn't know I was helping him cheat on his wife. I would never... I know, I interrupted gently. I can see that. And I meant it. She wasn't the villain in my story. She was another woman deceived by the same man. We both stood there, two strangers bound by the same wound. Finally, she whispered, "Why did you come here?" I looked around her small living room, at the neatly stacked books, at the soft blanket folded on the couch, at the half-finished mug of tea on the table.
"I needed to see you," I said. "I needed to understand why he chose you." Her face fell. "I didn't know he was choosing," she said. "He made me believe you weren't even in the picture." I nodded, and then quietly she added, "He lied to both of us." The simple truth hung in the air. Sharp, undeniable, freeing. I realized something then. The betrayal wasn't about her. It wasn't even about the affair. It was about the way he rewrote reality to suit his desires, the way he crafted stories and manipulated hearts, the way he made victims out of women who believed him, including me. "Thank you," I said softly. She blinked. "For what?" "For telling me the truth." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "If you ever need anything," she whispered, "even just someone to talk to, you're not alone." I managed a small, sad smile. Neither was she. I turned toward the door, but before I reached it, she spoke again. "He's messaged me," she said quietly. "Last night, and this morning." I stopped, slowly turned. "He said he wants to explain. He said he wants to see me." My blood chilled. Even after all this, even after the confrontation, he was still trying, still lying, still convincing himself he could fix both worlds. "Will you?" I asked. She shook her head firmly. "No," I blocked him. I closed my eyes and exhaled. Relief washed through me, not because she blocked him, but because I no longer felt anger toward her, only clarity and strength. When I stepped outside, the mist had faded, replaced by a thin ray of sunlight breaking through the clouds. The storm was ending. For the first time, I felt it ending inside me too. The drive home felt different. Lighter, like a weight had lifted. When I entered the house, Daniel was sitting at the kitchen table with his hands clasped like he was praying. He looked up immediately. "Where were you?" he asked, voice trembling. I set my keys down calmly. "I went to see her." His face drained of color. "You... what? Why would you..." "She didn't know," I said, cutting him off. He froze. "She thought you were divorced. She thought I left you." His mouth opened and closed like he couldn't form words. I stepped closer. "You didn't just betray me, Daniel. You built an entire life of lies. You didn't just hurt me. You hurt her too. You deceived both of us." He covered his face with his hands. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't know how to stop. I didn't know how to tell the truth." "That's the problem," I said quietly. "You never learned how." His shoulders shook.
but I didn't feel pity. Not anymore. I want a divorce, I said. He looked up, eyes red. Please, don't do this. We can fix it. I'll change. I swear. No, I said softly but firmly. We're done. The finality in my voice filled the room like thunder. He broke completely. Not in anger, but in realization. He had lost something he thought he would always control. Me. Where will you go? He whispered. I looked out the window at the clearing sky. I don't know, I said honestly, but anywhere is better than living in your shadow. I turned away, and for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Truly free. The storm was over, but the woman walking away from it, she was just beginning.
Sometimes pain doesn't come from enemies, but from the ones we trusted the most. Maybe that's how life teaches us to see the truth. Could you forgive such a betrayal? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. More stories are coming, stories that will touch your heart.